G'day folks, Lone Mojo here, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to set up your first server in 7 Days to Die and what sort of configurations you should use. Now, as I said, this is for your first server, and this is more set for people who are learning the game, and I would recommend playing about 2 in-game weeks, so about 14 days worth of time on these settings before you change them. This will let you understand how to loot, how the zombies are going to behave, and let you experience a couple of Horde nights before you start on what I would call a proper server. So this is like your training wheels settings. Let's jump in and go to the new game. And it doesn't really matter the world size, especially for this one, but there are plenty of other options. You can go larger size worlds. I think 10,000 is probably the biggest that you can do. But you can also do some customized ones where you can change the world sizes, choose a world seed, or go into the advanced generation section, which will let you choose the density of points of interest, rivers, that sort of thing. This is pretty advanced stuff. You probably won't be worrying about it for a little while. I would just do a predefined one, especially for your first game. So the important stuff we're going to be looking at is over in this section. And I'll go through what the various settings I would change are and discuss why I changed them. First of all, region's pretty obvious. That's your geographic location. The visibility, if you're going to be playing this solo, leave it as not listed. Otherwise, you can have it set to friends only or available for the public. You can, of course, put a password on it even if it's public, so you can prevent people from getting in that way. And you can also set the maximum number of players. For your first game, you're probably going to want to do it solo while you get used to things, or maybe with some friends, and that's it. So it'd be one of those 2 options, depending on what you're going to do with it. The next setting is this one, the difficulty setting. If you hover over it, you'll actually see some explanations. But in essence, I would put it on scavenger. The big thing you're going to notice here is damage dealt. So in scavenger, zombies are going to deal less damage to you. You're going to deal more damage to them. But it also affects things like your tools. So if you're using an axe to cut down a tree, on scavenger, you're going to do more damage to the tree, which means you're going to get those resources faster. You're going to find, especially when you go from scavenger to this adventurer setting next, you're going to find that there's quite an obvious decrease in the speed that you can get resources. These are the settings that I would choose for your basic on your first playthrough, though. Set it to scavenger. You can change the day, the 24-hour cycle. 60 minutes seems to work fine for me. And the daylight length you can decrease. I don't think you can make it any longer, but you can make it shorter, so you've got less daylight hours. 18 feels good, though. It gives you 6 hours back at your base, and that's plenty of time to do all your crafting stuff before going out adventuring the next day. In the basics tab, now this is where I make a few changes. Blood Moon frequency. So Blood Moon is where is your 7-day event. It's where the Horde comes at you. You can see I leave it set to 7 days. It's called 7 Days to Die. It's in the title, but you can change it if you want it to happen more frequently or if you want it to happen less frequently. The only thing I would say here is by bringing it forward, it doesn't give you a lot of time to explore the game. Your days between Blood Moons are going to be spent prepping for those Blood Moons. Alternatively, if you push it out past 7 days, it starts getting to the point where you're not going to feel the time pressures on those days. The only exception I would say is if you pushed it right out to 30, I would have a lot more difficulty on the game to compensate for that. So you're going to have to spend more time gathering resources. I leave it at 7. Next up, you've got this range here, and this puts a bit of variability if you want that in there. So if I set this to 1 day, this will mean that there's a 1-day variance in when this Blood Moon can happen. It could happen on day 6, 7, or 8, 1 day either side. This would be, 5 to 9. If you want to know that every 7 days you're going to have an event, set it to 0. Blood Moon warning, you just get a warning in game when it's the day. I would leave that just to morning. It just reminds you on the day of this that you've got to be ready for that night. Now we come into the zombie speeds, and this is where I will change things. So day speed for zombies, I leave that at walk. By default, zombie night speed will be set to sprint. I bring that down, especially for your first game, to run, so that if the zombies do come at you at nighttime, you've still got an opportunity to get away from them. I would also do the same for the feral zombie speed and the blood moon speed. Feral zombies look very similar to normal zombies, except they've got glowing eyes. They're a bit stronger. Their speed is going to be at run at all times, night or day. So having that at sprint can, especially for your first game, can be really tricky to deal with. So I leave that at run so you can still have that getaway option. You've also got the blood moon speed, which is when the blood moon ticks over, the zombies speed up as well. I just leave that at run for the first game. And then there's this zombie feral sense. So feral zombies can sense you. If you set it to off, they're the same as normal zombies. You can then set it to say they can sense you during the daytime hours. So usually when you're out and about, they will sense you and come after you. You can have it set to night, or you can have it set to all. I actually, while the default is off, I would probably put that up to day, just to add that little bit of tension while you're out and about looking for things. Feral zombies will come looking for you. Now, the last thing on this list is persistent profile. This is if you've got a character, you start a character, and then let's say you're doing a multiplayer session, and you and your mate start at level 1 and you level up a bit, but then he turns around and says, oh, I've got a better character on another server. If you've got this set to persistent, he can't bring that character in. He's got to play with the one he started the server with. I don't like that. I like the idea of everyone starting on an even keel, so I leave that set to on. In the advanced section, there's only two sections that I change here. And first of all is drops on death. Now, by default, that's set to everything. It means if you die, you drop a backpack, and everything that you've looted in your backpack and on your toolbar, your hotbar, will get dropped into that backpack. But there are some other options. First of all, you can have nothing. This means that if you die, no big deal. All of your items that you found stay with you. That's a bit boring for me. Alternatively, you could say, well, only the tool belt options are dropped. I keep everything in my backpack. You can have the reverse of that, which is everything in my backpack is dropped, but I keep my toolbar options. Or you can have delete all, which means everything is gone for good. Don't do this one, not on your first game. I would do backpack only. And the reason is that if you have everything drop, there's probably a reason you died, and it's probably because you got overwhelmed by zombies. So having to fight your way through those zombies when you haven't got anything, or just trying to do a mad dash past them, is kind of rough. At least if you've got this setting, backpack only, you'll have any items in your hotbar. That could include a weapon that you've got. Maybe you've got a spear, or you've got a pipe pistol with 6 rounds in it. It might be enough to get you back to your backpack safely. The other thing I would change here is mark airdrops. In the game, there will be airdrops that come, and you can go and collect goods from them. By default, it's every 3 days, and that's what I leave it at. You can increase or decrease that time, or even disable them altogether. I leave it at 3 days because it's a nice thing that can break up a week without being too frequent. And the setting that I would apply here is mark airdrops, and I would set that to on. That just shows you on your map where the airdrop is. And then the multiplayer section, I don't change anything here, but if you are going to a public server, you can decide whether you don't want players to kill each other, whether you can only kill your friends, whether you can only kill strangers, or whether it's just a free-for-all. I don't change this, but I only play with friends, so it doesn't matter. So that's the basic settings for an easy server. This is your training server, if you will. Just to go over them again super quick. The difficult setting is set to scavenger. The zombie night speed set to run. The feral zombie speed set to run. Blood moon set to run. Feral sense set to day. The drops on death set to backpack only, and the mark airdrops set to on. Now, if I was doing a more serious game, so I've played my 14 days, I've done my 2 hordes, I'm pretty happy with how things go. What's the next step? I would set the scavenger difficulty to adventurer. I would probably change the feral zombie speed to sprint, and I would change the blood moon to sprint, and I would change the feral's sense to all. I would leave the other settings as they were. So zombie night speed stays at run, and I would leave these two backpack only for drops and mark air drops as on. I'd leave them as they are. I think this setting gives enough difficulty that the game feels like a more difficult simulation. It goes from being a romp to a horror survival game, but it's not too overwhelming. It's still going to be a bit of a transition, but it's not going to be as jarring. And that's it. Once you're done, you click start and the server will be built and away you go. So, hopefully that's given you some ideas of what those server settings are and why I select them when I'm starting a new training server, if you will, and what I would recommend for going into a more difficult server. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you like it and hit the follow button on the channel, hit the subscribe button, and until next time, take care.